Hello, this is Feng, a SG Riichi Academy trainer, and I'll be analyzing in depth a particular hand taken from the latest Know Your Challenger League video. Stay till the end and you'll get to learn important mahjong strategies and up your game. The hand now is South 4 and featuring Yanshon, who is the last dealer. The score distribution is very close and we know it makes us stressful and nervous. We have had our moments of just a little bit more, I could have won, or because of that minor mistake I made, I lost. So before going through this hand, you need to do something very important, and that is to have a game plan. A game plan is about the general direction that you need to take for your hand. For example, what's the minimum value you should aim for? Should you play defensively? In South 4, you can pretty much predict what kind of actions other players are forced to take. By having a game plan, you can take advantage of your opponent's weakness and maximize your chance of achieving your target position. To develop a game plan, first, let's look at what your opponents are forced to do. Starting with your Kamicha, he is first and will definitely try to win as fast as possible. If you start opening your hand, he is very likely to block you. Next, your Shimocha. He is last place and will hope to avoid last, but if he has a good hand, he might aim straight for you by going for a Riichi. So whether he decides to play an expensive or cheap hand, will signal his intention to you for assistance. Lastly, your Toyman. He'll be afraid of getting overtaken by 4th place. So unless he has a good hand, he also wouldn't try too hard trying to overtake you. If his hand is quite weak, he might also try to help your Kamicha win to secure his 3rd place. Now that we know how your opponents will behave, what should your plan be? Assess whether you need value or speed, and whether you can afford to chase value. You don't have to worry too much about 3rd, as he has the pressure of unable to deal in and will not chase value hand with 4th place pressurizing him. You should refrain as much as possible from doing obvious hands such as Honitsu, as you will get blocked by Kamicha. You are unable to deal into 5.2k as it will bring you to 3rd, so be aware of Toi Toi and Honitsu. You are 6.2k from 1st place, so based on your hand potential, you have to decide to end this game with 1 or 2 hands. So either Riichi for 3 hand 40 full, or open hand 2 hand to close the gap to at least 3.3k to draw first. So to summarize, just remember this. Right now, you need to block Shimocha's expensive hands, go for open 2 hand, or Riichi for 3 hand 40 full. And you can afford to be aggressive. By aggressive, it means like don't think too much about keeping safe tiles. This is a lot to take for players who are not familiar with this, so make sure to take some time, pause the video and digest this. Bear this in mind as we return back to the play. So Yanshon start off the hand with 1 Nun, and he actually have quite a good hand. Alright, let's start looking at his potential of the hand. You can see a potential Sanshoku, 456, 456, 456. So it's actually quite a decent hand that he can aim for a Riichi and straight away overtake to get first. Right now he has another chance of Itsu. Right, at this junction, his hand already have 2 Yaku inside. One is Itsu and the second one is Sanshoku. So it's quite okay that he has to discard the Nun, the Dora Nun here immediately. Right? If the last place Pong this Nun, then he can afford to like just defend and still hold on and avoid last instead. Right? He can still decide to defend after this kind of thing happens. One important thing that about managing Dora is that you have to discard early before other players Pong it. If assuming that your hand don't really need the Dora anymore, which is this case. So this is a very good move. Alright, he draw a 7S, which makes a Itzu even more likely now. He's already Ishan 10 away from Itzu. So for hands like this, it's not very worth to call for Itzu and win one hand. Remember, your game plan is to have at least 2 hand or Riichi for 3 hand. Alright, and here is the main topic of today's video. Now, what should you discard from this? The dilemma here is that you can actually choose for a faster Riichi hand by discarding 4M because of the Yonrin K at 3, 4, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or you can continue with trying to push for your Sanshoku. So it's quite a speed versus value quite a problem. We will pause here and take a detailed look at what is the difference between discarding 7P versus 4M. Let's look at a more simpler example first. If we keep 4M instead of 7P, the path is quite straightforward. If you draw any surrounding manzi, we will get a worst case scenario of Tan Yao Ishan 10 and best case scenario of Wen Tan Bin Sanshuku Ishan 10. If we discard 4M, it will be way more complicated. A 3P draw will give a 5-man chan with Ryangkan Ishan 10. A 1S draw will lead to Ryangkan with some man chan pin full Ishan 10. 5P and 6P gives similar Ramen and Ryangkan Ishan 10. 4P and 2P draw will give rise to awkward hand shapes that we will want to avoid. Awkward meaning bad hand shape or hand that makes you confused on what to do next. Technically speaking, there are more tiles that will lead to Ishan 10, but as you can see, some will lead to awkward hands. Even though keeping 7P seems like it gives a lot of tile efficiency, it's important to know that not all tile efficiency are actually useful. Here's a summary between the two discards. From the tile efficiency comparison, they are actually similar. But discarding 4M has more tiles to meld for Tan Yao, better Menzen quality than discarding 7P, and equally good directions as discarding 7P. It only loses out on value. So players who choose to discard 4M are more likely to be focusing on speed and trying to reach the hand. The risk is that different players will handle the awkward hands very differently, and this leads to more mistakes being made. For this particular case, there is 2 out of 6 cases that is awkward, which give rise to around 35%. Wait a minute. If these two discards are similar, does it mean that it doesn't matter which discard is chosen? This is when we will go back to the game and analyze the situations to make difference. Looking at the situations, there are 2 players who have opened their hand, Kamicha and Shimocha. Players who open their hand tend to put speed as their priority. So as per predicted, Kamicha is trying to win as fast as possible, perhaps with Pinzu Itzu, 7-9 Sanshuku, or Anko Yakuhai. But there's little we can do about him. As for Shimocha, the key question will be, is his hand expensive or cheap? Players who will discard honor first are more likely to prioritize speed than value. Honor tiles are precious to expensive hands like Toi Toi and Honitsu. Nothing is 100% in Mahjong, but in terms of probability, Toi Toi and Honitsu are low. We now have a good Ishan 10 hand, so we have no reason to assist Shimocha. If Shimocha is doing a regular fast hand, what tiles do you think he needs? Without having to analyze too much into his discard, just take note that middle Pinzu will flow out quite early. While this may not mean that he has no Pinzu, but at the very least, it is likely that he has only one set. This makes 7P less likely to assist, and even if it happens, it will be obvious that he no longer needs any more Pinzu. Even if the surrounding Pinzu backfire on you, your discard will still be safe to him as you continue to progress your hand. But imagine if you were to discard 4M now here, and your draw backfire with 2M, 3M, 5M, or 6M. You'll be forced to discard them, correct? Even if 4M doesn't assist now, your surrounding manzi draws will eventually assist. This will help him win and reduce your chance of winning. In short, 2 reasons why discarding 7P is better than discarding 4M. 1. Having an extra meldable Yaku makes it easier to achieve your game plan. 2. Don't assist Shimocha. Back to the game. So Yanshon decided to discard a 4M to prioritize speed for Riichi. So in this scenario, it's rather quite weird and a bit inconsistent. So as per our analysis just now, I will expect that players who choose to discard 4M will then discard 3P here, because that is their plan when they discard 4M, which is to have a faster Riichi hand. But discarding 1S here will make the Pinzi still stuck with not a very good shape anymore, because your 3P is required for your pair. So actually pairing up the 1S is actually the best case scenario as compared to things like 2S, 6S, 9S, which will give you 1 Kanchan. Shimocha is getting more and more obvious that he wants Sozu. So actually an additional risk of just now the 1S discard is that it might also feed Shimocha again. And Toimei is getting very aggressive with his 5S discard. With Toimei being rather aggressive, if there is a chance for me to chi for the Itzu, I will take it. So now, this is a rather tricky situation. Should you discard 1S first? Or should you discard 3P? Right? Because the Shimocha is so obvious wanting Honizu, it's quite difficult to release this 2S. Even though 2S just pass, but you don't want to assist at all. So, what will you do? And what do you think Yanshon did? So, the reason why Yanshon did 7P is, as per what I've mentioned, he also doesn't want to release this 2S. So, but he probably still decides that he'll want to push this Itzu if the 3S or 5S comes in. So, he's keeping this Itzu Ishanten alive instead of discarding things like 1S. And the game ends here. So there's no difference in the result, even if Yanshon were to take the right move, or rather the more recommended move. But that's how Mahjong is. Sometimes the things that you learn may not be applicable and does not change the results. The game may have ended, but there's still more. I ran 500 game simulations using Naga to compare the two discards. You can see the clearer difference in details. Discarding 7P has a higher EV, higher chance of getting first place. But take note that these differences are bigger in Tenho rules as compared to WRC rules Akanashi. In Tenho, if you win this Sanshoku hand, the game ends immediately with you being top, but not WRC rules. Another takeaway is that it is usually better to bet on winning one bigger but slower hand than winning two cheap but faster hands. I have an announcement to make. I'm planning to start my own YouTube channel focusing on intermediate and above strategies or game analysis. Please let me know both good and bad pointers of this video. Is there any part that is too slow or fast or hard to understand? Let me know in the comments below what kind of contents you would like to see as well. This video is a trial for me to get a gist of how much time and effort is needed to make for future content. I will also release some videos that is more specific for SG Riichi, so subscribe and stay tuned for it. I'll see you in the next video.